What's up you guys, it's Troi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you my Mystic Beast tutorial. This painting tutorial is in partnership with the Balch Springs Library, so if you received a painting kit, please check out the description area below for further information on how to mix your colors. I'll guide you guys step by step on how I created this piece. Please feel free to pause the video at any time in case you need to work on your painting. First, I'm going to start off by taping my surface. I like to use 1/2" washi tape just to give it a nice clean white trim around my painting, but you're more than welcome to skip this step if you like. So I'm going to go ahead and just speed right through this and show you guys how I tape my painting. Next, I'm going to start measuring out for my grid. I'm going to take my 12-inch ruler for this, and I'm going to start spacing out 1-inch notches, so that way I have an idea of how I'm going to construct my painting. So I'm going to start at the top, working my way from left to right. And then I'm going to stop lengthwise of my surface, and I'm going to make those 1-inch notches starting from the top to the bottom of my surface. We want to try to get our lines as straight as possible, but even if you mess up on your lines, that's totally fine. We just want the grid to be close as possible so that way we can start constructing our figures. Now, if you're using a 16x20 canvas provided by the Balch Springs Library, instead of using 1-inch notches, you'll want to measure out 2 1/4-inch notches across and vertically to measure out your grid. Next, I'm going to take my pink eraser and gently erase out the harsh lines. So we want it to be visible but very light, so that way it's not showing through our paint. So now that I have my grid in place, I'm going to start drawing in my eye. I want to try to find the center line of my painting. So I'm going to count how many squares there are total, 6 spaces. So I want to start at the halfway line. Then I want to count 2 spaces over just to find those equal points to begin. Now, starting from one of my points, I'm going to start drawing in my eye. So I'm going to make a curved shape with almost like a hump in the middle. And you do want to make sure it's centered off. So I'm going to just sketch in my shape and have it meet right in the center by counting off my squares. So I'll find my center square, centering it off, and that's where I want my hump of my eye to go. Then I'm going to kind of curve off those little ends here just to soften it up a bit. Then I'm going to find the little center area for the bottom of my eye, and I'm going to make a similar shape that I did for the upper part of the eye to finish off my eyeball shape. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just count over a little bit right underneath those 2 points, about 3 spaces up, and make another little shape here right underneath the eye. So this is almost going to be like the shadow area of our eye. Next, I'm going to go ahead and create the top lid and count over 3 spaces. And then I'm going to start from that 3rd space and kind of replicate that shape right above the eye again meeting that third square, and just kind of drawing almost like a little banana shape at the top, and just defining that shape. I'm going to go ahead and create the iris of the eye, just making a large circle, and then just kind of redefining the shape of the eye a little bit. And then right in the center of the iris, right down the center line, it's almost like a really sharp oval shape. We're going to make that right in the center for the pupil of our eye. And I'm just going to make these little marks right here just to give me reference on where I want my detailed marks to go. Next, I'm going to count 1, 2 spaces, and from here is where I'm going to create the shadowy areas of my eye, so that way I know where my gradation begins and ends. And I'm also going to do that on the other side, starting from the second square, just making that little curve to kind of give me a reference line on where I want my colors to go. And now I'm going to start painting in my eye. So now that I've got the basic sketch for what I want my eye to look like, I'm going to go ahead and start painting it in. So I'm going to grab my small flat brush, and I'm going to take some of my peach color, and I'm going to paint in the sides of the eye and just start painting that in. I'm going to switch over to my small round brush just for better precision, but whatever brush you'd like to use, it's totally up to you, whichever you're most comfortable with. So I'm going to continue to paint in my eye with that peach color. Again, if you're using the painting kit provided by the Balch Springs Library, please feel free to check out the description box below for the mixture of colors, but you're more than welcome to use whatever colors you'd like for this painting. So now I'm going to take my turquoise blue color with my flat brush, and I'm going to mix just a tiny bit of that black. Just a little bit goes a long way. Just trying to get a darker shade here. And I'm going to start on a third of one side with that darker color turquoise, so that way we get that nice transition. And just kind of paint it out just a tad bit. And I'm going to do the other side as well. And you want to try to get the sides as equal as possible. Then I'm just touching it up with a little bit of just my regular turquoise blue color without any black in it. And I'm kind of overlapping these colors a little bit just to make the transition a little bit smoother. Then I'm going to go in with my teal green, and I'm going to do the same process, just overlapping a little bit. After cleaning my brush a little bit, I'm going to take some of my blush pink, and I'm going to mix some of my teal in with the blush to kind of mute out the blush just a little bit. And I'm going to use this as my shadow line right underneath the eye. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that in and around the points of the eye there. I want to try to get a nice even brush stroke going across. It's always best to do long even strokes rather than short strokes to get nice even coverage. And then I'm kind of going in as well on the sides of the eyes here, just to create a nice shadow effect on those edges. There we go, get a little bit more. It's a little bit lighter, but that's okay. So now I'm kind of going back over, cleaning up those edges. And I'm also going to go over a little bit over the bottom shading area that we created earlier, and right underneath that banana shape we made over the eye, just to kind of give it a little bit more detailing there. This shade is a little bit lighter than the original shade I used, but that's okay. Just gonna grab some more of that lighter shade and kind of edging around the bottom eyelid shape that we did before. I'm actually liking just the blush pink a little bit better. It's totally up to you guys, whatever you guys want to do. Don't mind the floating solution in the water cup. It's something to help clean my brushes. Now I'm going to take some of the orange color that I have with my round brush, and I'm going to start painting in this banana shape that we created. Actually, let me start here first. I'm just going to kind of highlight the little corners of the eye here. I'm just painting that in. Just doing that on both sides here. And I'm also going to color in that banana shape that we made right above the lid. So I'm just going to continue to kind of define that shape a little bit and kind of add a little bit more detailing for highlights in the eye. Just adding them on the sides right there. It's always best to kind of wet your brush a little bit and dip it back in the paint. That way it makes the paint a little bit easier to flow, especially with these matte paints. They dry really quickly, so it kind of helps to add a little bit of water. I'm going to go back with my flat brush, kind of tap it dry a little bit. And I'm going to go straight into my turquoise, and I'm going to paint in the larger area of the bottom shadow of the eye. I'm going to go ahead and start defining that shape a little bit. Just kind of coming in a little bit further, making sure I cover all of the surface with paint. A lot of times with these craft paints, you do have to add several layers, and that's okay. I'm going to take my round brush again, grab some of the teal paint. I'm adding just a little bit of water in there, and I'm going to color in that narrow area right here of that shadow shape that we made for the lower eye. And just defining those edges. These round brushes really help in kind of giving like a clean curve around any shape that you're trying to define. And I'm just going to follow that shape right around the outer edges of where I painted in my blue paint. And just kind of filling and layering in that paint a little bit more and softening those edges. I'm going to come up here, define that shape a little bit more as well. that banana shape. I'm gonna paint in with some more of my teal. And just going in with my round brush again, adding a little water in case the paint starts to get a little dry and tacky. Also do, sorry about my hand, this angle. So I'm also going to do this side as well. Same thing I did with the other side, just kind of defining the shape of the eye a little bit and where those shadows are with those colors. Rinse my brush and grab some of my blush pink. And right above the little orange part of the lid, I'm going to go over it with some of my blush pink. Again, just defining, adding layers to my paint. And building those layers really does make a great difference when you're painting, especially with these craft paints. I never used to paint with craft paint like this. I usually just use just thick-bodied acrylic paint. But since the COVID-19 pandemic, it was just easier for me to start using craft paints, and doing little paintings like these just really passed the time and made things go so much easier for me using these craft paints, and I ended up loving using these craft paints. So now I'm trying to like hoard as many like pastel colors as I can. So now I'm just kind of going in with my orange again thickening those layers. And I'll kind of speed through this a little bit to the next section. Again, if you need to pause it to kind of work on yours a little bit, please feel free. Now I'm going in the iris of the eye, and I'm going to paint in the iris with that same orange color, and I'm just using my round brush to get better precision around the edges and those curved areas of the eye. Making sure to make those clean, precise lines with my eye, and just layering that orange paint on top. Now I'm going to take some of my blue, and I'm going to make just these small little curved brush strokes to add a little bit of texture to the eye. And these are going to kind of be our scales or our fur in a sense. So as you can see, I'm kind of overlapping my green area with some of the blue. And then I'm going in my blue area and layering some green to add that texture in there. And I'm going to kind of turn my notepad just so I can get a better angle with my hand to paint in the other side. So I'm going to take my green, start adding those little brush strokes to add scales in. And just kind of overlapping the blush pink as well. And this can be kind of random. You don't have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it. You can do whatever pattern you like. You can do whatever shapes you like. You can even not add little scales like this at all. You can add dots, whatever you want to do. It's your painting. You can get as creative as you want. The inspiration behind this painting, I really wanted to do a dragon piece, but I didn't want to go super realistic. I really like doing cartoony styled paintings. That's pretty much my niche, with pastel colored schemes. And for this one, I wanted to do something to where it was derived from a dragon, but didn't exactly look like a dragon per se. So, which is hence the title, Mystic Beast. So it could pretty much be interpreted to any sort of mystic or mystical creature, as I would say. So that was kind of the inspiration behind this. And I'm also going in at the bottom with some of my teal green, again defining that lower lid and adding in those little green scales where I want them to go. Now at the bottom of the lid, you can kind of see how some of those green shapes are kind of going in, and it's kind of curving around and following the shape of the eye. And so now I'm going in with some of my blush pink, kind of overlapping that into the pink area of my eye, adding in those stripes, those scales a little bit around the eye. This just kind of helps tie everything together as one, and it really gives it great texture. I love the way it turned out with these scales. Very easy to do, very simple to do, just simple brush strokes is all it takes. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over so I can start working on the other side. Just kind of speeding this up along as we go. I'm getting that other side overlapping some of the blue, kind of in between the little green stripes a little bit. Now I'm going to go in with some of my peach, my orange color. I'm going to do the same thing, adding those shapes. Now I'm going to go in with my black paint, painting in the pupil of the eye, making sure I get those nice crisp clean lines, those clean edges. Just a tiny bit. Then I'm going to take my liner brush, which is my teeny tiny brush with some of that black paint, and I typically like to use this brush to get those nice fine lines, and I'm going to kind of outline the corners just a little bit on the edges of my eye, just going in those edges, following the shape that I've created, just very slowly. And I'm also going to outline the base of the eye like so, making sure to get right on that edge. And that's one thing I love about these liner brushes. They really give you a nice, precise line. It's always best to paint in very gently with these liner brushes. The heavier you land your brush on the surface you're painting on, the thicker your line will be. So it's always great to be conscious of the pressure you're adding to your brush. So I'm going to also go along the top edge of the eye here. Now I'm going to take some more black paint on my liner brush, and this time I'm going to outline the outer edge of the iris with my black paint. Then I'm going to go in and I'm just going to add some little details to the iris, because usually in the iris of an eye you usually have those little lines that kind of define the iris. So I'm going to add a couple of lines in there. Again, these don't have to be exactly the shape as I'm doing. You can add them in whatever shape or size that you like, but you do want to make sure they're varying in size. Next, I'm kind of curving in the bottom parts of the lines that we're creating around here. Just kind of curving in those little in between those lines. I like to just start from the edge, kind of taper them, make the base a little wider. You see how I'm kind of curving them just a little there. Just curving it from line to line. So we're kind of just curving in, kind of like webbing on duck feet, just kind of curving those in from line to line. I'm going to do that on all of the lines in my eye. You do want them to be various sizes, just so you have a variety of shapes in there. You don't want all of it to be exact. So I'm just going to go ahead and work on this. Now I'm also going to take some more of my black paint and just adding some extra little lines in there, in between, just kind of floating on the edge of the iris, just to give it a little bit more detail. And now the fun part begins, where I'll take some more of my black paint and I'm going to start defining the edges of my scales. So for this part, at the end of each little scale tip, you'll just want to make a little V shape. You don't want to outline the whole shape of the scale. You just want to outline at least the base or half of each little scale. And this is probably the most time-consuming part of this painting, but it's well worth it, trust me. Once you see the results, once this is all done, it'll just be stunning. So I'm just going to go through all the little scales here. As you can see, just kind of edging each of them with a little V shape. Some I'm making a little bit bolder than others. And the trick to this is you want the point of each V pointing towards the center line of your painting. As you can see, they're all pointing in towards the center line. So you want to make sure they stay consistent. And I'm just kind of going all along the eye, detailing in with those little scales here, all those little shapes that we created. We want to give those shape. Even in the little areas where there are no little scales brushes defined, we do want to actually just create some kind of floating in there just to give it a little bit more texture. Kind of turn this around to kind of work with my painting a little bit more. And on this side, I want them going in the opposite direction. So this is just right on the edge of this side here. Kind of outlining the top of the lid a little bit here. And I'm going quite fast with this demonstration only because there's so much detail in this and it gets quite tedious, and we want you guys to have to sit through all this. But of course, if you need to pause it, please feel free. Now, after I've cleaned my liner brush a little bit, I'm going to take some of my light beige color and I'm going to start adding some little highlights around the edges, right around there, and also some little highlights in the eye, the pupil of the eye here, just to kind of give it a little bit more definition and detail. Adding some on some of the scales as well. Now you don't want to overdo it with the highlight. You just want to kind of feel your way around your painting, whatever feels right to you. Just kind of adding a couple little highlights here and there. Last but not least, I'm going to add some little freckles by using the very end tip of my brush. I'm going to dip it into some of my paint and just add a couple of dots right around the outer edges of the eye, just to give it a little bit more detail and more of a whimsical feel. And now we're done, you guys. So here comes the most satisfying part of the painting process, is peeling off the tape. you guys for joining me on this painting tutorial. I had so much fun painting this painting. I hope you guys did as well. Please leave your comments down below for any questions you may have, what your favorite part of the painting process was, or any ideas on what painting tutorials you would like to see next. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, make sure to click subscribe and click that like button. I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed day, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye!